Hello and welcome to the third night of Ravenloft Fright Nights. My name is Locke, my pronouns are they, he, and I will be your wereraven today. And as I guide you through the mist today, I do have one kind of important question. It may be a little bit of an assumption to make about you. Are you perhaps a bisexual who can't make a single decision for the life of them? Interesting. Do you find making big character choices difficult because you don't know which one you want more, or which one might have the least damaging outcome? Well, boy, do I have a solution for you today. Let's use the Tarokka deck to make some big decisions, either about character creation, decisions, or even campaign stuff. We're going to do a little bit of it all today. And if you are for some reason not familiar with what the Tarokka deck is, it is basically kind of like the Ravenloft Tarot deck. It is recommended if you want to obviously buy the prop, to buy this to run Madame Eva's Tarokka reading, or you can use it throughout the campaign as well. Other Vistani can do the reading. You can have a player learn how to read Tarokka and pick up a deck or something like that. But this is like the divining cards of the world. And if you don't want to actually buy the prop and you have the Curse of Strahd 5e module, they are all in the back. Like this. So you could technically like photocopy it and print it out and then cut them all out if you wanted to. And it gives you a good rundown of what each one represents and what the suits mean and everything. But yes, let's go ahead and do something. I'm going to shuffle the deck, and we're going to see what we get, and I'm going to decide what character would exist because of this. And I think to keep it fair, and since I want to do a few readings for different things, I'm just going to do a 3-card pull and base my character off of that. Alright, we got a new camera angle for you today. I don't know how I feel about this, but we're trying new things, gang. Alright, let's shuffle. You get to witness firsthand how bad I actually am at shuffling cards. Which is why my Tarokka readings always take forever. Okay, 3-card pull to make sure that they're in view of you. Interesting. Okay. We got the Donjon, Paladin, and Priest. Let's see what these mean. I desperately want to memorize what the meanings are, but have not committed my brain to doing that yet, so. Okay, what's fun about this is we did get one of the high deck, or like the major arcana if we were talking about regular tarot, and that's for our past card. Usually when we do a 3-card pull, like it's past, present, and future, so we're gonna use that to make a character. Alright, so in the past we had, just as a reminder, the Donjon. Isolation and imprisonment, being so conservative in thinking as to be a prisoner of one's own belief. As written in the book. Okay. Our Paladin card. Why did you fall? Our Paladin card is the 2 of Swords. Alright. Just and noble warriors, those who live by a code of honor and integrity. Okay, interesting. And then the Priest is, what is that? A glyph? Yeah, it's Master of Glyphs. Enlightenment, those who follow a deity, system of values, or a higher purpose. Interesting that I got a reading that could apply to one of my major NPCs, so I guess we're gonna use that today, dude. Okay. I'm gonna make a Barovian-born PC using this reading. So with the Donjon, I'm going to say that this is going to be someone from the village of Barovia. It lives in the shadow of Castle Ravenloft, and I always envision that as it's probably more terrorized than the other main settlements because it's so close. It's the one without walls. Its political structure is pretty much non-existent. People are just trying to get by. Very paranoid, so much to the point where like you don't even really see people, and they're the most victimized with the dream pastry issue. So someone who would be from there would probably be very stuck in their beliefs that it's all for yourselves, no one really bands together, nothing good could come from trusting others, and that any sort of kindness could be exploited. And the trapment of not being able to break out of that would be to just perpetuate that cycle for the longest time. So then we move into our Paladin card, the Two of Swords. So if my Barovan PC is from the village and feels very stuck in their ways and can't find a way out, but were to meet a group of adventurers who came through, who lured into Barovia to be in this cat and mouse game with Strahd, right? And saw them trying to do good, to see them be shocked by the everyday life and the isolation and probably the starvation as well and the distrust and trying to make a bit of a difference, even though they themselves are also victims of the Count's boredom, malevolent nature. And to see someone do good, and even maybe the group of other PCs that came from another world helped out my character to make them believe that there could be something new out there for them. That's where I think they would be presently with this Paladin card. Okay, and then lastly, we got the Priest card, Master of Glyphs. So with this setup, I feel like the future would be to figure out a new sense of identity, to have been enlightened by making small little differences throughout Barovia, that it does matter to be good and to be kind and to fight against the horrors, that changes can be made, even if they are the smallest little differences in the world, and maybe that could lead to something bigger changing in the long run. So there's our character. I feel like with what I'm set up for, I feel like this has to be a paladin character for class. I don't feel like heritage necessarily matters. I mean, Barovian would likely be human, so probably human paladin. But I feel like you could technically go any route with that, with this character. What oath should they have? That's the real question. Hold on, I'm gonna pull up the list of what my options would be. Do 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 do. Give me the 2014 rules because I'm still being resistant to the new ones. See, my brain just automatically wants to go to Oath of Devotion because that's my personal favorite. What the fuck is this one? Where did this come from? Oath of the Harvest? The Oath of the Harvest attracts paladins who wish to nourish and heal the world. Often found on aid missions to war-torn lands, such paladins resort to harm only as a means of preventing further suffering. Paladins who swear this oath are more likely than not to heal, feed, and nurture a wounded foe, provided the defeated creature gives its word of honor that it will cease its nefarious activities. They are no fools, however. Typically versed in religion and medicine, these paladins are unlikely to believe the word of creatures inherently inclined to lie or those that have previously broken the world. Okay, I don't know where this came from. I'll figure it out in post, but I think I'm gonna choose that one. I haven't heard of this one before. I'm playing a human Oath of the Harvest paladin. How fun, that's new. Okay, I'm gonna keep that open so I can refer to it in case I need to refer to it later. Okay, interesting, interesting. Let's take these, put them back in our deck, and let's shuffle. Oh, I should probably give them a name. Let's pull a card for name and personality that the rest of the party would get to know as they are starting to heal and they take this oath of the harvest to try to do what little good they can in a world that fights against any sort of light. Okay, so I'm going to base the name off of Marionette. Interesting. Okay. And personality. Raven, you've got to be shitting me, dude. Okay. For those of you who play at my tables, you probably already knew who I was hinting at, the reading reminding me of. But now I feel like I have to just fully kind of commit. Okay, so the name. Let's look at the meaning of the marionette. I also do enjoy that we got two of the high deck cards. Alright, the marionette. The presence of a spy or a minion of some greater power, an encounter with a puppet or an underling. I mean, I think off of this, like, I kind of like the idea of going Mary, calling him Mary. Think Mary, he, they pronouns. that's going to be the basis for the name, but I kind of want to interpret some of the meaning with it as well. So I think I'm going to go more the route of encounter with a puppet or an underling. I think Mary, our Oath of the Harvest Paladin, is going to try to sympathize with a spawn, with a vampire that maybe didn't deserve their fate. I'm thinking Doru from the village. Maybe Mary and Doru grew up together, and when he found out his fate, is going to attempt to feed Doru in a way that will help garner trust and heal him, and maybe try to find a way to cure his vampirism down the line. So that's what I'm gonna go with. Mary and Doru were childhood best friends. So Mary definitely wants to try to save Doru. And with it being like a puppet or an underling, obviously there's going to be a lot of struggle. It's not going to work out to begin with. I'm even going to say that maybe Doru feeds off of Mary just because he won't let the party attack or harm Doru. So then this starving fledgling of a vampire spawn, ravenous for any amount of blood, just would have torn into Mary. And then Mary decided, no, I need to help my best friend whose fate I didn't know what it was, but now that I'm aware of it, my love for him will make sure that I do something about it. And then the Raven card. The Raven card means a hidden source of information, a fortunate turn of events, a secret potential for good. So I feel like since this was supposed to be our personality card, that goodness that Mary finds within himself by meeting the rest of the parties who's trying to do good in whatever way that they can. Like, it pulled it out of him. He always wanted to do more, but he felt hopeless. But with community, we can find the bravery to do something about our circumstances. And because there's always been this secret nature of wanting to stand up against the oppression, that leads to wanting to help Doru immediately, that leads to taking the Oath of the Harvest, could hint at trying to align himself with the Martikovs later down the road, and maybe even gets the gift of wereraven lycanthropy. Who would have thought that I would go that route as soon as I saw that card? Okay, let's take these away. And I wanna see. I'm gonna pull for a scenario where Strahd offers to free Doru. Maybe Strahd has a cure or knows a way to relinquish Doru. And I'm gonna pull 2 cards. One for what does Mary do if presented with that information alone? The promise of a power to save his best friend. And then a second card to see what the results of that decision may be. So, okay. Oh god, we got the Traitor, the 9 of Glyphs, and we got the Diviner, the 2 of Stars. Turn those around so you guys can see the art better. There we go. So for the decision of what Mary would do if Strahd presented exactly what he wants, maybe what was his first motivating goal to leave the village and to join the party, to save Doru, what would Mary do based on this card that I just pulled? And if this was actually something I was playing and I didn't know how to make a decision, maybe Mary likes Tarokka, and this could be something that I do in character, to where like I pull and divine from the mists from a greater power of what should Mary do, and that's what he does in character. So that's how you can add it into the RP as well. Not just for like you above table to figure out decisions maybe between sessions, but you could literally include this in your gameplay if you wanted to. So let's see. 9 of Glyphs, the Traitor, betrayal by someone close and trusted, a weakening or loss of faith. So that tells me that I think that whatever's happened in the campaign, Mary is starting to slip back into his old ways, is regressing into the paranoia that nothing can truly change, that Strahd is the ancient, he is the land, and what he wants goes, and does not realize that Strahd is offering this to Mary, likely to get the upper hand, to control him, to have power over him, to make him a marionette, a puppet on Strahd's strings, perhaps. That if Strahd gives Mary one thing that he wants, maybe he would be more complacent with the rest of the suffering. So I think Mary takes whatever the deal is in hopes that it will give him Doru and the freedom. It probably keeps it from the party so that they don't realize that he betrayed them and worked with Strahd. And would see, I don't think this would break the oath either, because I think Mary would see that as him trying his best to give the harvest to Doru, to allow him to have this nourishment and redemption and stuff. So I don't know if it would break. Hold on, let me relook at the tenants listed. I hope they're listed. So since this is supposed to be like a secret, like he doesn't realize he's being betrayed, maybe Strahd even words it in a way that seems like he is sympathizing with Mary's plight and his connection with Doru and wants to amend that. And because Mary needs to allow the opportunity for his enemy to change, decides to believe him. And thus, I don't think the oath breaks at that point. And then let's see, the results, we got the Diviner, which is the second of stars. The pursuit of knowledge tempered by wisdom, truth, and honesty, sages, and prophecy. Okay, this one's interesting to have to interpret. So with the traitor being that Mary doesn't truly get what he wants, the Doru is not freed or fed or cured in any way, I think the result, to lean into the tragedy of it all, has to be because of the truth and honesty that Doru, with whatever faculties he has the freedom to say as a spawn, is able to communicate that he doesn't think that the deal that Mary made was worth it. And that whatever debt that Mary is now in to Strahd isn't worth the potential of whatever the cure is that's being presented. That Doru thinks that it'll actually make things much worse. And maybe there needs to be a pursuit of knowledge outside of Strahd, because I guess Doru would probably recognize a controlling paternal figure taking advantage of someone because of the fact that his father, Father Donovich, locked him away in the basement and basically was trying to let him starve and was hoping that the gods would fix him, when the god's voice has not been, the Morning Lord's voice in particular, has not been heard in who knows how long in Barovia. So Doru would probably recognize when a paternal masculine figure is not being all that truthful and is trying to trick someone to entrap them, and would probably suggest that Mary try to figure something else out, which Mary would trust his best friend Doru. So let's say that he does. So, all right, for our last pull, because we've been following the story of Mary and Doru, I think the last thing I'm going to pull for is, I'll do three so we get a really good long ending. Where does Mary go to get the information to help his best friend? What is the result of that? And then the final one will be, what is the end of the campaign? Like, do they defeat Strahd, or is this a campaign that more ends in the party being torn apart and having to make their way in their new Barovian lives? Or for Mary, maybe his bad or good ending with his best friend Doru. So let's see. So where Doru feels the need to go will be the Executioner. Interesting. The result of that is the Ghost card. And then end of campaign, end of story, the Artifact. I am so intrigued by the fact that we've gotten so many major Arcana high deck cards. I'm shuffling the whole deck and we've been mainly getting these ones, so I feel like that signifies that if I were to actually play this character, if this was a real campaign situation, how emotionally charged his story would be. And I feel like we can see that reflected in my interpretations of the reading. Alright, so obviously we're going to start with the Executioner. The imminent death of one rightly or wrongly convicted of crime, false accusations, and unjust prosecution. I feel like with the unjust prosecution, Depending on how you want to interpret the abbot, I think that's where Mary would end up going. Because the abbot in Kresk is feared, and there's rumors that like he might be Strahd himself because he's never aged and all that sort of thing. He lives on top of a hill in the cathedral in the Abbey of St. Markovia, and people fear going up there because of the maniacal laughter and the whooping and the screaming that could be heard at various times, and the bell rings at odd hours. So has a reputation of being feared, but depending on again how you want to run the abbot, as well as is this a frame? It is a frame. Whoops. As well as like what your intention with his storytelling is and what happens with him. I feel like that could be someone he goes to, and if you know what the abbot is, which I'm about to spoil, so you might want to skip ahead if you don't want to hear. The abbot is a deva, an angel, a divine being, and he has access to magics that could potentially actually cure the vampirism. So I think if Mary took Doru there, the abbot could technically heal him, but the abbot also is a little bit mad, as we know. So I don't know if he actually helps or what Mary has to do. So let's look at our results card, which we got the ghost for. Ghost, the looming past, the return of an old enemy, or the discovery of a secret buried long ago. I think the abbot wants to kill Doru because undead evil needs to be eradicated. His way's the highway. We need to bring the dawn back to Barovia. But Mary is able to convince him to let him help with the plan with Vasilka. Vasilka is like a stitch flesh creature, essentially, a flesh golem, who looks like Strahd's lost love that the abbot has been making. And I know that as written, you can get him a wedding dress and he'll like resurrect or do something for you in return. I'm gonna say that that's something he agrees to do. He either gets the wedding dress or something else that the abbot might want. Let me see what the end thing is. What does artifact mean? The importance of some physical object that must be obtained, protected, or destroyed at all costs. I feel like since this doesn't really, I feel like this is end of Mary's character like story. I don't know if he's a character that goes to the end because so much of what I've gotten was about Doru that I'm going to say the artifact is getting the wedding dress, is something that needed to be obtained in exchange to free his friend, to free Doru, to heal the vampirism. And then I think that's when Mary would leave the party and does not continue, would probably be an ally in the end, would provide meals and a place to set up base before going into the castle for like an endgame boss fight, you know, with Strahd. But I think that tells me that because I got the artifact that Mary's focus was Doru, and once he gets Doru healed and he's no longer a vampire spawn, and Doru also has this freedom to be whoever he wants, I think that becomes his main focus, is settling down and finding a place to make a homestead, to make a safe space for people to come and be nourished and heal. That his goal was never the grand scheme, but to provide little bits of aids and food in particular, because food can be hard to come by in Barovia. That would become his main focus, and maybe Mary and Doru open up a restaurant, figure out how to grow more food and just spend the rest of their days making sure that people are fed and have a place that they can go. A sister location, if you will, to the Blue Water Inn, especially if Mary does get the wereraven lycanthropy. Doing subtle things from the shadows rather than the big direct siege, the direct attack. More of the representation of the small acts of rebellions we can do just by existing and loving one another and being happy. I like that. Okay, well, I think that's going to be the end. This ended up being a bit longer of a video than I was intending, and I feel like we got a little bit more of a serious, heartfelt, emotional story throughout this, rather than what I thought was going to be a silly little funny video for Ravenloft Fright Nights. I'm not mad about it, but I feel like that really showcased that you can use the Tarokka to make a very meaningful character, help you decide some big decisions about character arcs, and personality types and what your story could be. This could help you lay out stuff for NPCs for DMs. This doesn't just have to be something for players. If you need to suddenly give the shopkeep that you just named Bob a backstory because your party is latched onto Bob and wants Bob to be a big part of like being present, being their main guy to go to for supplies, you can use this to quickly give a backstory instead of going to like one of the multiple tables in various sources or otherwise online. So that's fun and very connected to Barovia, to the Ravenloft setting. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. But yes, as we are making our way out of the mists, and you might allow them to let your fate be a little bit more vague and interpretive, just like the mists tend to be, I'm glad we got to hear that story together. I actually really liked it. I'm kind of upset about it. But yeah, I think that'll be it for our third video of Ravenloft Fright Night. So make sure that you subscribed if you want to see the rest of this Halloween celebration leading up to the 31st. And like this video if you did enjoy it. If you are happy for Mary and Doru getting a pretty relatively happy ending, please give it a thumbs up so that I know that you also found the story as emotionally endearing as I did. And I will see you guys next time.